Marcus confessed to me that his secretary had gotten pregnant by accident during a business trip. This was the 5th year of our marriage, and he had always wanted a child. He pleaded with me, tears streaming down his face. "Claire, the baby is already 7 months along. Please, I'm begging you, let her have it. I'm willing to leave with nothing." I nodded. Fine, let her have the baby. After all, Marcus was the one who planted this garden of deceit. Marcus and I had been married for 5 years without children. At first, I believed that having a child couldn't be forced, and with a relaxed mindset, it would happen naturally. He initially shared my sentiment. He would even comfort me after every false alarm. "Claire, dear, there's no need to rush. Good things take time. Our little one is probably just waiting for the perfect moment to surprise us." At those times, I felt so grateful that he, a man who loved children more than most, could be so understanding. But over the past 2 years, under pressure from his parents, Marcus started to have some complaints about our childlessness. Once, without my consent, Marcus scheduled an appointment for me with a renowned gynecologist. He wanted me to get checked for any fertility issues. When he suggested it, I was in disbelief. I lost my temper in a fit of anger. It was the first time since we married that I had gotten angry over the issue of having children. "Marcus, you should be the one to get tested first. A man's examination is much simpler than a woman's. If you're confirmed to be fine, then I will go for a check-up. That's the most logical approach and the one that would cause the least harm to both of us." The moment I finished, Marcus jumped up as if he had been gravely insulted. He retorted urgently, "How could there be anything wrong with me? Claire, it's been 5 years. Can't you think about our family for once? All you have to do is get a check-up. If there really is a problem, we can find other ways to conceive. Don't you want to have a child, the fruit of our love?" Marcus's questions left me momentarily stunned. I looked at him in disbelief. From accusation to emotional appeal, he was trying so hard to absolve himself of any responsibility. It was as if he was the only one who had been trying for a child these past 5 years, while I was the selfish one who didn't care about our family. In that moment, for the first time, the man I had shared my life with for so many years felt like a complete stranger. The gentle, mature, and rational Marcus I remembered seemed to be a complete facade. Without his mask, he was harsh and pathetic. In the end, I refused his request. After calming down, I told him calmly, "If you get tested, I will too. I cannot accept this one-sided suspicion from you." Hearing this, Marcus threw up his hands in resignation. His mouth turned down, and his eyes were filled with coldness. After that argument, Marcus started going on frequent business trips. He was home less and less. Even during the rare moments we were together, I could feel his distraction. He was perfunctory when I shared interesting stories, and when I asked about his work troubles, he would just laugh it off without a word. We became like two acquaintances bound by marriage, not even polite strangers. At the time, I thought it was because his career was demanding, and it was inevitable for him to neglect his family for a short period. But then, one day, I noticed that when Marcus returned from a business trip, his finger was bare. He had taken off the wedding ring he hadn't removed in 5 years. I had designed that ring myself. From the first draft to the final version, I had spent over 30 sleepless nights. Despite being a renowned designer, when it came to my own wedding ring, I was like a novice student. Every step was taken with extreme care. Marcus had been by my side day and night back then. Although he knew nothing about jewelry design, he was still willing to listen to me explain every intricate detail and its special meaning. So he couldn't possibly be unaware of how much effort we had put into this ring, and how many hopes for our married life it carried. At that moment, I suppressed my disappointment and anger and asked casually, "Where's your ring?" Marcus glanced down at his finger, then, after a moment, said as if just remembering, "I took it off at the swimming pool last time and forgot to put it back on." I looked at his calm face in silence, my sense of loss and disappointment growing. I could no longer comfort myself by saying this was just the inevitable quiet period of marriage, or that he had genuinely forgotten, because Marcus had always been a man who paid great attention to detail. If one day he overlooked a detail, it meant he was starting to overlook the people and things behind that detail. Besides, how could a wedding ring be a mere detail in a marriage? So I decided to find a chance to have a serious talk with him. I wanted to know what had gone wrong with our relationship to make him so neglectful of our marriage, but I never got to that planned conversation. The night I was going to celebrate with Marcus, the night a diamond ring I designed became our company's quarterly bestseller, he confessed to me first. His secretary, Melanie, was pregnant with his child, and she was already 7 months along. I counted the days. It had happened shortly after our fight about having children. It was also when Marcus began to drift away in our marriage. Everything had a clear trail. Claire, I'm so sorry. I was really drunk and confused that night. I swear it was only that one time. After that, she and I never went on a business trip alone again. Hearing this, my arm started to tremble. The glass in my hand finally slipped, shattering on the floor. At that moment, my breathing became difficult, my throat feeling as if it were being squeezed. 7 months. That meant she was only 2 to 3 months away from giving birth. As an employee of his company, it was impossible for Marcus to have just found out. So, this child had been allowed to stay until now with his tacit approval. Claire, Melanie went to the hospital for a medical abortion last month. We both wanted to make up for this mistake, but it wasn't successful. And Melanie's body is still very weak because of it. Marcus's words were sincere, his eyes pleading. He seemed to genuinely want my forgiveness, but in his eyes, did he think I had so little self-respect that I would tolerate his child with another woman in our marriage? A failed medical abortion. He dared to spin such a flimsy lie. Marcus was just trying to show that he had done his best to rectify the situation after cheating, but this child was just so resilient that it had survived until now. He couldn't do anything about it. Overwhelmed with too much information at once, my emotions began to fluctuate, but I still tried my best to remain calm. So, Marcus, what do you plan to do? Seeing that my reaction wasn't too extreme, Marcus thought I could understand his transgression. He thought for a moment, then joyfully took my hand and replied, after she gives birth, we can raise the child. Then we'll give her a sum of money and make her leave the city for good. That way, you won't have to suffer either. What do you think? Hearing this, my nails dug into my palms, just barely stopping me from laughing out loud, but in the end, my eyes reddened with restrained tears. So you knew all along, Marcus, you knew I've been anxious all these years because I couldn't get pregnant. You knew I've suffered a lot for it. So when you accused me of being selfish about having children, it was just a baseless argument to cover up your own ugly thoughts. How laughable. Marcus, how did you become like this, step by step? Or was it that I had never truly seen you for who you are? Marcus and I were together for 8 years, having met and fallen in love in college. He was the student council president, and I was the head of the etiquette department. When we first met, he was shy. When we were in love, he was sincere. He never failed as a partner for a single moment, cherishing me for 8 years as if I were a treasure. Our friends envied me for having such a partner. Even my hard, too, please father praised him. They all said we were a match made in heaven. A talented man and a beautiful woman, a model love story. I too once firmly believed that if some people were born to be together, then the person I, Claire Evans, was born to be with was Marcus Thorne. But at this moment, the man standing before me hoped I would accept the child he had from his affair, even sanctimoniously claiming it was to save me from suffering. Marcus, when you wear a mask for too long, taking it off will tear your skin. Look at your unrecognizable face now. It's truly disgusting. Of course, I had no intention of agreeing to Marcus's request. He must have promised Melanie something to convince her to have the child. That probably included a condition like, I'll divorce my wife once the baby is born. So, his suggestion of us raising the child was just a way to placate me, he thought, to prevent me from holding a grudge against the pregnant Melanie and becoming a threat. Marcus, you really have thought of everything for the sake of this child. Even now, you still want to use excuses like being drunk, an accidental pregnancy, and a failed abortion to keep your image from crumbling. Quite the effort. I didn't answer Marcus's question directly. I just slowly wiped the tears from my eyes and said gently to him, you must compensate Melanie well after this. Seeing me so kind and generous, Marcus's face finally broke into a smile. He moved closer and pulled me into his arms. Claire, don't overthink it. That child will be our child. Thank you for supporting my decision. In his embrace, my eyes gradually darkened. A few days later, I secretly scheduled a comprehensive physical exam for myself. A week later, the results came back. All my indicators were excellent. There were no signs of infertility or difficulty conceiving. Holding the test results, a weight was finally lifted from my heart. This basically confirmed it. The child in Melanie's womb was very likely not Marcus's, a result we couldn't achieve in 5 years. They managed in 1 try. What? Were they some long, lost positive and negative polls? And thinking back now, his abnormal reaction when I asked him to get tested first, and his insistence that nothing could be wrong with him, seemed like he had a guilty conscience. Marcus, since you want a child so badly, so stubbornly that you would betray our marriage and defy morality, then of course I will grant your wish. You will get what you want. Melanie found me when I was at the coffee shop downstairs from our home, organizing our post-nuptial property notarization. After Marcus's confession, I had a talk with him. I told him that although I was willing to consider his proposal, I still found it very difficult to accept his infidelity and couldn't get over it. Seeing my vulnerable and compliant attitude, Marcus was filled with guilt. He confessed with red eyes, "Claire, I was truly wrong about that. As long as you can forgive me, I'll do anything to make it up to you." Then, I told him that I felt very insecure now, but because I truly loved him, I was willing to trust him one more time. Hearing this, Marcus vowed that he would never let me down again. I nodded. Then, as if an idea suddenly came to me, I proposed, "Marcus, if you really want me to feel at ease and a little better, can you have our joint fixed assets legally notarized under my name?" Hearing this, Marcus looked a bit hesitant, but I didn't want to give him any time to think. I pressed on, "Marcus, I really want to continue our life together. That's why I'm only suggesting notarization, just to give me some peace of mind. If I didn't want to be with you, I could just file for divorce. It's been 8 years of our lives. I can't bear to let it go. I will treat this child as my own, and I'm willing to give you another chance." As I spoke emotionally, tears streamed down my face, my voice choked with heartfelt words. Marcus, who had been slightly hesitant, fell silent for a moment and finally believed me, his honest and dutiful partner of 8 years. He was sure I couldn't cause any trouble, confident that everything would remain under his control. "Marcus, you are so arrogant." The following week, he transferred all the fixed assets we had acquired after marriage to my name and had them notarized. Marcus was willing to do this not only out of guilt but also to keep me stable. Melanie hadn't given birth yet. If I realized too early that I was going to be kicked out, they were probably worried I might do something extreme. And now, seeing Melanie here, I deliberately took my time putting away the documents, leaving them in a conspicuous spot on the table. Melanie sat down across from me, about to speak, when she saw the property notarization papers. Her face flushed with anger. "Marcus gave you all the houses." I smiled at Melanie, calmly replying, "It's just some compensation from him to me. What did you want to see me about?" Melanie fell silent, not responding immediately. Her bejeweled right hand stroked her round belly. Again and again, her eyes darted towards me, as if gauging my reaction, but seeing my calm demeanor, she lowered her eyes in disappointment. "Sister, I came here today to apologize to you. I'm 7 months pregnant with Marcus's child." Her tone was timid, but the provocative stroking of her belly never stopped. I nodded slightly, picked up my coffee, and replied calmly, "He already told me, since you're 7 months pregnant, you should focus on your health. If it's a child of the Thorne family, I'm sure Marcus's parents will be very welcoming." I deliberately emphasized, "A child of the Thorne family." Then I looked up to see Melanie's reaction. She panicked for a moment, her fingers tightening around her cup, but she quickly composed herself. "As I thought, this child might not be Marcus's. What are you talking about, sister? Of course, it's Marcus's child." I put down my cup and nodded. Her tone was firm, and her expression had returned to its previous calmness. But then again, Melanie probably never imagined that after being with Marcus for so long, the child she conceived should have been his. Turns out he just wasn't up to the task. Not long after my meeting with Melanie, I heard from my friend Nina. I had asked her a while ago to help me find some information. Nina worked at the headquarters of Elysian Corp, and Marcus was the CEO of Elysian's subsidiary, Elysian Strive. Although they weren't in the same company, it was relatively easy for her to inquire about trivial matters at a subsidiary. She told me that she had been asking around the administrative department at Elysian Strive these past few days. She finally found out that 8 months ago, Melanie had a boyfriend. This boyfriend even came to pick her up from work many times, but for some reason, they broke up. Shortly after the breakup, Melanie resigned for personal reasons. There were rumors that she resigned because she was pregnant, and everyone assumed it was her ex-boyfriend's child. Nina asked me, looking puzzled, "Claire, why are you looking into this?" Her expression was worried, but I figured a smart woman like her could guess why a wife would suddenly start investigating her husband's pregnant former secretary. Seeing my somber face, Nina sighed, "Claire, if you need any help, you must tell me. Whatever I can do, I'll do my best to help you." Her firm promise brought me back to my senses. After such a betrayal, I had grown somewhat indifferent to human kindness, but I was still moved by such friendship. "Thank you, Nina. I am facing some problems, and I do need your help right now." Nina's hand gently covered mine. She said softly, "What is it?" "I'll do my best." I looked at the wedding ring on my finger, my eyes darkening. Can you help me find information about Melanie's ex-boyfriend? Nina agreed without hesitation. For a social butterfly like her, finding someone in the city was relatively easy. This morning, after a meeting about the new season's product development, I felt unwell and took leave to go home. As I got out of the elevator, I heard arguing from inside my apartment. I slowly paused my hand, which was about to enter the code. Did you really put all the houses in Claire's name? What will be left for me when I marry you? Melanie's hysterical screams came through the door, while Marcus remained silent inside. Hearing this, a small smile played on my lips. It seemed the information I intentionally leaked to Melanie last time had its effect. She was bound to have an issue with the property notarization. Melanie, they're just some houses. I have other assets. Are you with me just for the money? As he finished speaking, the sound of a porcelain bowl shattering came from inside. Melanie laughed as if she had heard a joke. What else? Marcus, I've been carrying this baby for 10 months to get nothing, while that woman gets over a dozen of your properties without lifting a finger. Do you take me for a fool? I raised my hand to my mouth to stifle a laugh. I had thought this Melanie was a high-level player. How could she be so impatient? She still had the upper hand to negotiate, but acting like this, she was really risking it all. The argument inside continued. Melanie's cries grew louder as she kept shouting, I'm going to get an abortion right now. I'll make sure you die without an heir. Hearing this, I raised an eyebrow in surprise. This one sentence would undoubtedly hit Marcus's biggest nerve, because Marcus's desire for a child was far greater than he showed. Sure enough, a dull slap echoed, followed by the sound of a scuffle, then the sound of a bookshelf being pushed over. Melanie finally fell silent, no longer crying. Enough, Melanie, if you dare to abort this child, I'll make sure your whole family pays. Marcus's voice was icy cold. I could almost imagine how sinister his usually gentle eyes must look right now. Melanie didn't dare to make another sound, because she knew Marcus was capable of carrying out his threat. After that day, Marcus's attitude towards me changed subtly. He started coming home on time and skipping non-essential business trips. He even began buying me gifts again on holidays. I played along, but deep down, I knew the truth. Originally, he planned to divorce me after the child was born and marry the young and beautiful Melanie, but with Melanie's recent crazy behavior and my obedient and sensible demeanor in contrast, Marcus had reconsidered. His change in attitude now was probably because he truly intended to take the child and then pay off Melanie, but that wasn't enough, because while that outcome was favorable to me, it wasn't the outcome I wanted. As Melanie's due date approached, I started encouraging Marcus to visit her more often. It wasn't that I had generously accepted the child. I wanted Marcus to invest more of his heart into this child, so his disappointment would be that much greater when his hopes were dashed. But I didn't expect him to be reluctant to see her. It seemed Marcus's annoyance with her had reached a certain level, as he was unwilling to visit even as her due date neared. Honey, Melanie's child is our child. If I go to visit her, Melanie might not like it, and our relationship is a bit awkward, so you have to be the one to step up. You should go take care of them more often. Think of it as bonding in advance. After hearing my advice, Marcus's tightly furrowed brow finally relaxed. He agreed softly, then pulled me into his arms, affectionately rubbing his chin on my forehead. After all these years, you're still so understanding. If only we could have a child that was truly ours. How wonderful that would be. His voice was filled with regret, as if it were a genuine sentiment. But hearing this, my face, hidden against his shoulder, slowly hardened. Marcus, I should thank God for giving me this chance to see you for who you really are. If I had a child with a scumbag like you, it would be the stain of my life. In her 39th week of pregnancy, Melanie successfully gave birth to a baby boy. Inside the hospital room, the happy chatter of Marcus's parents drowned out the baby's cries. Reaching me outside the door, I leaned against the wall, my expression calm. I should have known long ago that his parents must have been aware of this child's existence for a long time. They were probably in on it with Marcus and Melanie from the beginning. But, inopportunely, I suddenly remembered my wedding day years ago, kneeling before them to serve tea and change my address to Mom and Dad. At that time, his mother's eyes were filled with tears, her voice choked with emotion. My friends around me remarked with envy, this is the first time I've seen a mother-in-law cry when her daughter-in-law calls her Mom, and their tears of joy. After the wedding, she often took me to various high society gatherings. She would always proudly introduce me. This is my Claire, so filial and sensible, and the chief designer at Radiant Jewels. Marrying Claire is truly my son's good fortune. Back then, everyone, including myself, believed that I Claire Evans, had a nearly perfect marriage, an outstanding, family-oriented husband, and kind, loving in-laws. But compared to this moment, how ironic it all seems. My thoughts returned to the present. I knocked and entered, placing the soup I had made on the table. Just as I was about to turn and leave, Melanie called out to me. Seeing me stop, she turned and pretended to be obedient, saying to Marcus's parents, "Mom, Dad, could you step out for a moment? I have a few words to say to Claire." They hesitated for a moment but finally nodded. Their eyes held a mix of awkwardness and worry. I understood. They were just afraid something might happen if Melanie and I were left alone in the room. Thinking of this, a bitter feeling wells up inside me. The cold reality of human relationships. What a hard lesson. After the door closed, Melanie's gentle gaze instantly turned sharp. "Claire, you've still lost. Mom and Dad just told me they're ready for Marcus to file for divorce. You didn't really think Marcus would take the baby and raise it as your own, did you? That was just a line to placate you. Now that the baby is born, you're useless. Enjoy your last days as Mrs. Thorne." Melanie's tone was that of a victor, delivering a final ultimatum to me, the loser. But her provocation didn't faze me much. I slowly ladled the soup. The thermos was excellent. Steam was still rising from the soup. I looked up at Melanie. Her face was haggard, her complexion dull and sallow. Childbirth had aged her visually. She was 3 years younger than me, but now it looked like the reverse. She probably looked more than 3 years older. I didn't retort. I just turned my gaze to the dark-skinned baby in her arms. Marcus had been fair-skinned his whole life, and from the few times I had seen Melanie before she gave birth, she was also fair. This baby, a little darker, and it could pass for an African child. Seeing this, I raised an eyebrow slightly. I deliberately provoked her. "Is that so, Melanie? I hope you're not just bragging. Come and gloat to me when you've actually married into the Thorne family. Otherwise, everything you're doing is just paving the way for me." My words seemed to hit a nerve. Melanie's eyes instantly filled with hatred. In her anger, her expression revealed a sinisterness. Suddenly, I had a bad feeling. Sure enough, I saw Melanie's hand reach for the baby's arm. With a pinch of her 2 fingers, the tender flesh immediately turned red and swollen. Almost simultaneously, the baby's cries filled the entire room. Marcus's parents rushed in, their faces anxious. Before I could form my words, Melanie played the victim. "Mom, Dad, you have to stand up for me and the baby. Just now, Claire said she wanted to see the baby, and then when I wasn't looking, she pinched his arm hard. Look, it's all swollen." The elderly couple immediately pushed me aside and went to check the baby's arm. After confirming Melanie's words, his mother turned to me with a stern expression. Her eyes no longer held the love she once had for me, only resentment and disgust. I gently shook my head, indicating I didn't do it, even though I knew they wouldn't believe me, because to them, they would rather believe in a mother's instinct not to harm her child than me, their daughter-in-law of many years. After the baby's cries subsided, she walked over to me. She didn't use harsh words. After a moment of composure, she spoke earnestly. "Claire, you've seen that you haven't been able to have a child all these years. Although we are very fond of you as a daughter-in-law, we still face a lot of pressure. Now that Melanie has given birth to a son for Marcus, we were thinking of giving you some compensation. Even after you and Marcus divorce, we will still be family." Hearing this, my tense heart finally settled. Then, I couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. Her grandson had just been born, and she was already getting straight to the point with me. Truly, a hypocritical and cold family. I didn't respond to her so-called comforting words. I just picked up the bowl of soup I had just poured, and drank it in one go. "Mom, this fish soup, you taught me how to make it 4 years ago. I have always respected and loved you, but this is the last time I will call you Mom. As for family, there's no need. Goodbye." Marcus came to me with the divorce papers a week later. This was earlier than I had expected. My intention in provoking Melanie at the hospital last week was to get her to pressure Marcus into filing for divorce sooner, because I had to get a settlement while Marcus's guilt was at its peak to maximize my assets. Otherwise, given Marcus's current annoyance and helplessness with Melanie, I was afraid he might actually keep the child and get rid of the mother. Fortunately, Melanie and his parents did not disappoint. I looked up at Marcus, a smile on my face, the same as always, but he looked haggard and mentally exhausted. His eyes under the black and gold-rimmed glasses were dark, and his hair was unstyled and messy. Marcus clutched the divorce papers, his gaze shifting between the document and me. He looked torn and pained. After a long pause, he finally spoke. "Claire, I'm sorry, I swear to God, I really don't want to divorce you, but I have no choice. Melanie is using the child to threaten me. My parents are siding with her, constantly pushing me to divorce you, so I can only. He slowly pushed the divorce agreement in front of me. I lowered my eyes to the asset division section. After the notarization, all our post-marital fixed assets were under my name, which was undisputed, a total of 15 properties in various locations, and 7 cars. As for Marcus's savings and a portion of his company shares, he had written in the agreement an 80-20 split. I got 80%, he got 20. This surprised me. I had consulted a divorce lawyer. The at-fault party in a marriage does get a smaller share, but typically it's 10%, at most 20% less. I had planned to contact a lawyer to fight for the maximum if Marcus offered me less than 70%, but this ratio saved me a lot of trouble. Just as I was about to sign, Marcus suddenly grabbed my hand. His eyes were filled with tears, his voice choked with emotion. Claire, you've been wrong during this time. I thought everything would go as planned, but Melanie has been threatening me constantly these past few days. She said if we don't get a divorce, she'll jump off a building with the baby. I'm truly at my wit's end. Don't worry about the financial compensation. I will transfer it to your account immediately, and in the future, if you don't have children, you can treat our little one as your own. I coolly pulled my hand from his grasp. A wave of disgust washed over me. I had no desire to stay or play along any longer. No, thank you, Mr. Thorne. From now on, please take care of yourself. With that, I took the agreement and left. But Marcus didn't know that if I wanted to have children in the future, I would have my own. As for him, that was probably no longer possible. In the following 2 weeks, I sold the shares of Elysian Strive that Marcus had allocated to me for a high price. I made a lot of money from that transaction. Just as I was smiling at my bank account balance, Kevin contacted me. Kevin, Melanie's ex-boyfriend. In fact, Nina had already found Kevin the week Melanie gave birth, but I didn't go to see him right away. I told Nina I would meet with him after my divorce was finalized. Now that the shares of Elysian Strive were sold, it was the right time. When I met with Kevin, I didn't beat around the bush. I noticed his complexion. As expected, it was quite tan. He had a simple, honest look, as if he came from a rural area. This was different from what I had expected. I sat across from Kevin and took out a photo from my bag. It was a picture of Melanie holding the baby with the Thorne family. Seeing it, Kevin didn't react much. He recognized Melanie but just said woodenly, "We've broken up. This has nothing to do with me." I sighed, seeing his reaction. I wanted to roll my eyes in frustration, but I had to be patient and guide him. Based on the timing, Melanie got pregnant in August of last year. Are you sure you had broken up by then? Or, let me be more direct, are you sure you didn't have any relations around that time? Hearing this, Kevin's brow furrowed. He seemed to remember something and finally reacted. Are you saying, this child could be mine? I nodded. After my confirmation, he sat there stunned, not moving for a long time. He just held the photo, looking at it over and over. Suddenly, as if remembering something, he took out his phone. He scrolled a few times and handed it to me. I looked down. The screen was filled with hotel booking confirmations. Most of them were from last summer, between July and September. The dates also corresponded to the times Marcus and Melanie returned to the city from business trips. This Melanie was truly busy, on business trips with Marcus, and back home with Kevin. I took screenshots and photos of each page. Then, I negotiated with Kevin. I can tell you the truth, but you have to promise not to reveal my involvement. Kevin nodded. Yes, this boy is 100% yours. The man in the photo and I were once married. He has fertility issues and could not have gotten Melanie pregnant. I wasn't 100% sure, but I said it with conviction to better fuel Kevin's anger. The moment I finished speaking, bang, Kevin's fist slammed on the table. His simple demeanor was gone, replaced by a fierce expression. Where are they? His voice was filled with uncontrollable rage. I had heard that people from rural areas are more concerned with continuing the family line. Seeing Kevin's murderous rage now, and his noticeable change in expression when I mentioned boy, somewhat confirmed this rumor. I gave him the address of the postpartum center where Melanie was staying, as well as Marcus's company address. Kevin took the addresses, and although he was almost consumed by anger, he still thanked me before leaving. After all, if I hadn't revealed this to him, he might have never known he had a biological son, who was being used by Melanie to seek wealth. The next time I heard about Melanie and Marcus was on the local news trending topics. The headlines read, "Man causes disturbance at City Postpartum Center. Elysian Strive CEO's child with former secretary not his own." Elysian, Strive CEO's extramarital affair. I clicked on the story and saw Kevin holding a banner, protesting in front of the Elysian, Strive building and the postpartum center. The banner read, Elysian, Strive CEO Marcus Thorne and my ex-girlfriend Melanie, give me back my son. Seeing this, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I scrolled down to the comments, already over 1,000. Most of them were urging the three to get a paternity test. Get a paternity test, nothing else matters. But honestly, that baby is so dark, doesn't look like the CEO at all. You don't even need a test to know it's probably the ex's. Besides the paternity test comments, some people also pointed out, Marcus Thorne just divorced his ex-wife in July. The baby was already born by then, so the affair is a sure thing. This CEO looks so familiar. I think I've seen him at a urology clinic. My finger stopped at that comment. A urology clinic. If this netizen was telling the truth, then Marcus probably knew about his fertility issues all along, and yet he still stubbornly committed all these despicable acts. The news spread rapidly, and the topic quickly became the #1 trend in the city. Overnight, Elysian, Strive stock plummeted. Looking at the cash in my account from selling the shares at a high price, I couldn't help but feel a secret delight. This was why I hadn't contacted Kevin before the divorce. Once he knew, he would have immediately caused a scene, and if I divorced Marcus after that, all I would have gotten were some devalued shares. Selling the shares at a high price first, then telling Kevin and letting him cause a scene, was the optimal solution. After the news trended for a day and a night, the heat finally died down a bit. That's when Nina came to me with the latest gossip. Did you know, Claire, that child really isn't Marcus's? Yesterday's drama was huge. So many people went to that postpartum center to watch. Marcus must have lost his mind. He insisted on getting a paternity test for the baby. I heard that secretary almost jumped from the center's window to avoid the test. When the results came out, the Thorne family's faces turned green. Nina said this while taking out her phone. She opened a group chat called City Gossip. There were dozens of videos inside. In one 20-minute video, a disheveled Melanie in a patient gown was kneeling and pulling at Marcus's clothes, begging him not to do the paternity test. In front of everyone, Marcus kicked her away. He even stomped on her stomach a few times. In the video, his eyes were bloodshot as he hurled obscene insults at Melanie, and his parents just stood by silently, wiping away their tears. About 5 minutes later, Melanie suddenly lunged towards the window like a madwoman. She was about to jump from the 8th floor. People managed to stop her just in time, but Melanie kept screaming, "You useless piece of trash. No wonder you and Claire couldn't have a baby in 5 years. You blame me for cheating on you, but why don't you admit you're the one who can't perform? You loser. Which woman could ever get pregnant with you? Marcus Thorne, you will die without an heir." Nina burst out laughing at this. She leaned in closer to me and continued, "There's another video below. It's of Marcus getting the test results." In the video, Marcus held the test report, his face grim. Then he tore the report to shreds and punched the hospital wall in a rage. His hand immediately started bleeding, and Melanie, slumped on the floor, looked like a woman in her 40s or 50s, her eyes lifeless, her skin sallow. In her early 20s, her face had already sagged beyond recognition. She stared blankly out the window, oblivious to the noisy crowd of onlookers and reporters around her. Nina scoffed mockingly. So, Marcus gets cuckolded and his reputation is ruined. A double blessing. And Melanie's dream of marrying into a wealthy family is shattered. She's now a disgrace. Haha. Of course, I was happy to see all this. In just half a year, I had gone from being the one schemed against and abandoned by the Thorne family to now holding most of their assets. And I had also gotten rid of a useless husband with fertility problems. Thinking of this, I happily put my arm around Nina and said, "Come on, my treat. Let's take a trip to Northern Europe to celebrate." After all, the money I had now was more than I could spend in several lifetimes. When Nina and I returned from abroad, it was already the second spring in the city. The wild days of traveling in Northern Europe finally allowed me to relax the tension that had been building up for the past 6 months. Looking back now, facing the schemes of the Thorne family and Melanie alone, one wrong step could have trapped me in a quagmire. Fortunately, I made it through. However, in the 5 months we were away, a lot had happened in the city. Marcus was fired by Elysian Corp's headquarters for mishandling his personal affairs due to the extramarital affair. He was also blacklisted by the industry. With his career destroyed, Marcus took out all his anger on Melanie. The Thornes' neighbors said they often saw Melanie going out to buy groceries covered in bruises, and they could hear Marcus abusing her at night. During my trip, I did receive a call from his mother. she was crying on the phone, begging me to help them with some money. She said Marcus couldn't handle the blow and was fooling around all day. He had recently been diagnosed with a serious illness, and Melanie had been admitted to a mental hospital due to a breakdown. Now both of them needed money for treatment, but the Thorne family was already broke and couldn't afford it. Hearing her pleas, I didn't say much. I just gave a few perfunctory replies and hung up. To be honest, hearing all this now, I felt no sympathy. Besides the satisfaction of seeing them get what they deserved, it was mostly just amusing. The fates of Marcus and Melanie were what they deserved. Whatever misery they faced from now on had nothing to do with me. I would only focus on myself. In the following days, I began to concentrate on designing my new quarterly collection, a single women's ring with a celestial theme. During my marriage, my design focus was mainly on wedding rings. Now, after the divorce, my target market had changed accordingly, and this change in my identity gave me more ideas and insights. I wanted to encourage more women like me, who had problems in their marriages or relationships, to bravely step out and choose to be single. But getting the theme approved was not smooth. During the meeting, someone raised a question. A single women's ring is a good idea, but why a celestial theme? Because stars are always associated with the moon, which doesn't seem to reflect the core idea of female independence and self-sufficiency. I was almost stumped, but then I suddenly remembered the starry sky I saw in Northern Europe. Actually, most stars are suns, independent entities that can emit their own light. They don't exist merely to accompany the moon. Just like you and me, we are all independent individuals.